going to do a recipe for you that we've been cooking every evening. And why have we been making this recipe?
Because it's good for Vata people in case you're worrying at this time of day.
Yes.
Which is basically like an hour before bedtime.
Right around 4 o'clock in the afternoon begins the Vata time of day. And so we've been noticing feeling a little bit anxious, worried, and low appetite, dried out, dry lips, nervous, right around dinner time, which is in that Vata time of day. So we started making this really delicious carrot dish, which is sweet, spicy, oily, and grounding. And so
Vata balancing carrot meal.
nice. So can you turn the burner on? So we are going to heat an iron pan on medium high-ish. So you can turn that down a little bit. Of course, iron pans get really hot.
5?
Yeah, between 5 and 4. And then we're gonna put in a good, generous tablespoon of oil. If you are Vata constitution, you can do even more. You could even make this with ghee. Sunflower oil would also work. Sesame oil is great for Vata. We like coconut oil because it's great for Pitta and Vata, and it gives a really nice neutral but a little bit sweet flavor to this dish. So we're gonna let that oil melt, and then we're gonna get our spices out.
You really want all of this to be very hot things. Not like hot, like spicy or anything, but something pitta.
Yeah, you need something a little bit sharp in nature for balancing the Vata without being too hot and drying. So not super spicy, but spiced. So I'm gonna do about a half a teaspoon of cumin seeds and a pinch of ajwain. Ajwain you can get at a health food store, spice shop, or Indian market. I'm also gonna do about half of a teaspoon of dried black mustard seeds, and I think that's good for our dried medicinal yummy herbs. Go ahead and put those in once the oil's melted. That's good. Great. And we'll give this a little shake. I'm just going to get a spoon. I feel I want to add a little more mustard seed. And you could play with this. You could put fennel seeds in. Go ahead and give those a little bit of a stir. Fennel seeds are really good for digestion, but they're sweet and they're not sharp in nature, so they're great for Pitta. And ajwain is really good Vata balancing spice. It's sharp in nature, but it actually has an unctuousness to it, so it is really good for dry coughs, for Vata. For breastfeeding mamas, it helps produce breast milk. And so I love just a small pinch of it in almost any veggie. It's really good with the carrots.
You can also, yeah.
Okay, so now we have some fresh ginger and some curry leaves. We have a curry leaf plant growing.
Every year we get
every day. Yeah.
Every day and every year.
You could find them in an Indian market, or you could just omit them. But the shredded ginger is really key to this recipe. So come on, put this in. Stand back when you put curry leaves in because they boomba, boomba, boomba. So very often we will put some fennel bulb into this recipe and chop it and put it in before we put the veggies in and caramelize it the way you would caramelize onions, which is really unctuous, digestive, soothing for Vata and Pitta. It's really tridoshik. And we would use that in place of onions because we don't use onions and garlic in our house. But you could do onions if you do onions. Alrighty, so we are doing just carrots right now. You could do beets. You can come over here, stir that while I'm talking. You could do beets. You could do winter squash and really any kind of grounding sweet root vegetable. Works really well in this recipe in which we're trying to balance Vata. So we're gonna let this cook, and we like it to get browned a little bit, which happens really nicely in an iron pan recipe. We're going to be putting a little bit of maple syrup in. You can also do maple sugar or coconut sugar or sucanat, any kind of unrefined sweetener other than honey. And so it just really has this nice, sweet, spicy, seasonal flavor, and I think some chopped pecans go really nicely with that. And they will get a little bit caramelized in the pan and with the maple syrup that we're going to put in. Normally it's just kind of roughly smashed. You could chop it with a knife, or pecans you can break with your fingers. So can you help get these into the pan?
This is a lot of nuts.
And stir that in. Here I have about a tablespoon of maple syrup and some salt. So can you dump this in?
You use fancy salt, didn't you?
I did use some fancy salt. And salt is actually really balancing. Salt, sweet, and sour are the tastes that balance vata. So it's okay to have that salt and natural unrefined sweet. You can see what's happening here with the sugars. Everything's gonna get nicely caramelized.
And what happens with all this kale we cut?
What does happen with all this kale? Now, when we were feeling really vata and a lot of anxiety a couple days ago, we were doing this with just carrot, right? But after 3 days of doing a few things, which included eating this for dinner every day, adding ghee to your herbal chai, and also doing leg oil massages before bed, vata came down, and so we thought it was a good time to start bringing our kale back. We love to do kale or chard a lot, and so it goes really nicely with these sweet orange veggies. So we're gonna put the kale in now. Kale cooks a lot faster than carrot, so it doesn't have to go in as early.
And always remember, sweet and savory is really good together.
So good together. So the kale is bitter, but it also does have a sweet flavor, being part of the cruciferous family. So it's sweet and bitter, and the carrots are sweet, and the spices are sharp. So we're just mixing this in, and then I'm gonna cover it just briefly. You don't really want to keep greens covered for too long or they will wilt, but for a little bit, just to help them steam. And I have it on medium-high heat because we like our kale to get a little bit of a
Crunch.
crisp. Yeah, a little crunch. Like I said, I love to get that caramelized, kind of browned edges on some of the carrots. So we're gonna let that happen, which will take another minute.
And it's really nourishing and good.
It is really nourishing and so good.
You can't even, once you start, you can't stop. It's
Here is our carrots, kale, pecan, spiced, grounding, earthy, sweet,
Let's check
nutty,
how hot it is.
pretty hot still,
Not hot.
salty. We're gonna put some fresh pepper on it. And remember that we said a little bit of sour taste is great for balancing vata.
This vinegar, it's like a sweet vinegar.
Okay, so here we have it. Sweet, sour, spicy, earthy, grounding, nutty, yummy. We're gonna have it with some tortillas. It's gonna be really good.